One of the coolest things about muscle cars is the way they look. Traditionally, they've had bright colors and cool stripes and, different designs. And we thought it'd be kind of neat to take a minute to look back at some of the stripe designs that we've all come to know and love on various muscle cars, but kind of land on how they got there in the first place. And as I was doing some research, it dawned on me that stripes kind of appeared about 1965 on American cars, but their lineage goes back into the early 50s. And the purpose of the stripe kind of goes back to road racing, where the announcers and the scorekeepers were counting cars going around the track, and if you had a whole bunch of white cars, it was hard to tell them apart. So back in the early 50s, they were known as the Cunningham stripe, because the Cunningham race cars were white with a pair of blue stripes going over the top, mainly to distinguish them from the other cars on the track. So the racing stripe definitely has a legitimate purpose in racing. Some racers also claim that by having a stripe on the hood, it provides kind of a visual target, making a nice fixed target to align the nose of the car as it goes around turns. I don't know if that's true, I imagine it is, it's just something that I heard. But the first muscle car to employ the use of stripes in the color scheme actually goes back to 1965 with the Shelby GT350. And it makes perfect sense because this was essentially a track-bred race car that was sold to the general public. And these Shelbys were all painted in Wimbledon white, and they featured a pair of really wide stripes done in Guardsman blue, and they started below the bumper and went up the nose, over the roof of the car, down the deck lid, and down the backside of the car. So it was really obvious when you looked at a Shelby that you knew what that car was. Plus, they had a couple of thinner stripes along the bottom of the door just above the rocker panel with the call out that said GT350 in them. And again, the purpose of those was to make those cars distinguishable on the racetrack, but Shelby knew that those stripes also made those cars distinguishable on the street. So it wasn't just a regular Mustang driving around if it had those stripes. And from there, it seemed like all the rest of the automakers started following suit by adding stripes to their muscle cars. And you can see an example of that GT350 in Muscle Car of the Week, episode number 17. Now, the cars we're showing on this episode are really in no particular order, and they're of no particular importance out of the fact that I think they're kind of neat. So this isn't a top 10 list or most popular. It's just interesting different designs of stripes that I think were kind of cool to point out. The next one being the 1970 Buick GS X, one of my favorite cars. And it's got a couple different stripe treatments on it. The hood is basically one big giant black stripe, but to me the neat part is the stripe that goes up the side of the car. It starts over the rear wing, it dips down on the quarter panel, and then kind of arcs forward with a very sharp point at the front, on the front of the fender. And why I think this particular stripe is so cool is it's kind of a metaphor for what these cars do on the drag strip. When the Christmas tree lights up green and you hammer the throttle, these cars squat and then they take off and go down the track. And that's exactly what that stripe does if you look at it. As they say in drag racing, it sits and gets, but they don't say sits. You can see a yellow Buick GS X in episode number 45. Next up, we've got a stripe that you don't always see, and this is on a 1970 Ford Torino Super Cobra Jet convertible that we featured in episode number 16, and they call this the laser stripe. This one starts on the door and goes forward to the front of the car, and it's got a really cool faded color scheme. These came in several different colors depending on what color the main body of the car was. In our case, it goes from yellow to red, but the other ones went from light gray to blue, yellow to dark green, or yellow to brown, again depending on the base color of the car. It's a really cool stripe design that lights up when other cars' headlights hit these things at night because of the reflective nature, but with that Super Cobra Jet under the hood, most people saw the back of these cars. Next up, we've got the 1969 Yenko Camaro. And these stripes are kind of interesting because it wasn't really a designed stripe for the car. It was kind of an afterthought. Yenko needed something to make these cars stand out. They had all the performance of the 427 under the hood, but the stripes were actually applied at the dealership, and they were a vinyl stick-on stripe. And the fun part about these cars is that these stripes were actually applied by Don Yenko's daughter Lynn and her high school friends. And he paid them like $5 a piece to stick these stripes on. So if you ever see a field of Yenko cars, you'll notice that the stripe placement is all just a little bit different, and that the stripe contour doesn't really follow the line of a '69 Camaro that well because it's a straight vinyl stripe. So there's a lot of controversy on the right way to do these, but in reality these were slapped on kind of as fast as they could by Lynn Yenko and her friends. We're looking at a gold 1969 Yenko Camaro with a set of white stripes on it. It's one of 10 produced in gold. Only 2 were known to have the white stripe. And you can see this one in our episode of Muscle Car of the Week, number 165. Next up, we've got another reflective stripe. This is the stripe that is found on the 1969 Ford Mustang Mach 1. And the Mach 1 was kind of a luxury addition for the Mustang, so they didn't go super over the top with the stripe design. The neat part is the reflective stripe starts right behind the front wheel and goes back to the edge of the quarter panel, and then again wraps up the quarter panel extensions and goes over the deck lid and back down the other side of the car. And these were also available in a couple different color combinations, again depending on the main color of the car. We featured an Acapulco blue car and a Gulfstream aqua car, both really, really great colors. And in that case, they featured a black and gold reflective Mach 1 stripe. The other stripes were solid gold with white lettering, or a red with gold lettering, again depending on the color of the car. And when these were seen in bright sunlight or through the headlights of other cars, they lit up, making these cars stand out at night. We think they really stand out in the daytime. You can watch both of these episodes, which are numbers 9 and 91 of Muscle Car of the Week. Perhaps the biggest stripes ever seen on any muscle car can be seen on the 1970 AMC Javelin Ronnie Kaplan Trans Am Edition. This whole car is essentially 3 stripes. It's red, white, and blue. The actual color names were Matador Red, Frost White, and Commodore Blue. And they called this design kind of the hash marks because they go up and over the car instead of down the side. It's a great patriotic color scheme, very easy to see out on the Trans Am racetrack, and one of the coolest stripe designs that we've ever seen. Episode number 88 features that car. Next up, we're taking a look at another AMC product. This is the 1969 Hearst Rambler Scrambler. And these cars were so cool, they came in 2 different color schemes, both red, white, and blue, but different stripe designs. But I think one of the interesting parts of this stripe design is the hood. These had an open scoop on the hood and a blue arrow stripe with the call out of the engine size being 390 cubic inches. And that arrow stripe points into the scoop, which, you know, connotates an air intake. But I always thought that the stripe might be on backwards. Like maybe it should have been pointing forward because that's the direction of the car. I don't know. What do you think? You can see that car in episode number 88 of Muscle Car of the Week. We go from some big giant stripes to some very thin and subtle stripes, but recognizable nonetheless. These are found on the 1970 Pontiac GTO Judge. They call these the eyebrow stripes. And on this silver car, these are finished in yellow, red, and blue. These eyebrow stripes were part of the GTO Judge package, but were also available on any other GTO as option number D98. And you color coordinated these to the color of the car as well. They were offered in yellow, red, and blue, blue, pink, and orange, green, white, and yellow, or yellow, red, and black. And these add a nice touch of color to break up the solid, all-business color scheme of the GTO Judge, but they weren't something that were going to call too much attention to the car if you wanted to do some prowling on late-night streets. You can see this car in episode number 93. One of the most recognizable muscle car stripes of all time is the 1970 Chevelle SS stripes. And these are big, bold stripes that came up the hood and then down the rear deck lid and were framed by a very thin corresponding pinstripe. And these were only available in black or white. And believe it or not, they were not standard on the SS. Certain hoods, like the cowl induction hood, had to have them, but you could have an SS car without the stripe, and the colors were up to you. These colors are not notated on the trim tag, The only way to truly know if your Chevelle SS had these stripes from the factory is if you find the build sheet during the restoration process, because these stripes are not found on the trim tag, and there's really no other way of knowing. This particular car can be found in episode number 182. And finally, perhaps my favorite of all the muscle car stripes is found on a Plymouth, the 1970 Plymouth Cuda AAR. And AAR stands for the All-American Racer Edition, which is basically the Trans Am race car version for the street. And Dan Gurney's race team was known as the All-American Racers, so the stripe starts off at the back of the car with a shield featuring the AAR logo and some stars on it. So you've got a nice red, white, and blue patriotic component on the back of the car, and then the strobe stripe that goes forward, to me, is just off the charts cool. It starts with some kind of skinny and tall, and then go forward up the quarter panels with the spacing getting a little bit bigger and the dash size getting a little bit longer until it comes to kind of a rounded off point in the front. And this is totally designed to make the car look like it's going fast even though it's standing still. And the way the strobe pattern changes along the side of the car also connotates acceleration, and it almost makes everything look blurry. And you couple that with the outrageous colors that these cars came in, and a blacked out hood, and of course the other styling effects, the wing on the back and the staggered tire size and the side exhaust, and you have a package that is unmistakably muscle car and just totally cool in my opinion. We featured several AAR Cudas from the Brothers collection, and you can find them in Muscle Car of the Week episodes number 50, 78, 121, and there's another one that you'll have to look up on your own, a brown car. It's very cool. So we hope you've enjoyed this look back at some of the coolest stripes to ever be put on muscle cars. If you have any feedback, you can leave us comments on the online versions or send us an email through our website at Muscle Car of the Week. But of course, perhaps the most fun stripes are the ones that you apply yourself by putting the right pedal down and leaving them on the street with your own muscle car. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.